Well, folks, today I finally answer one of the most commonly asked questions on the channel, and that is, what is a MILS plate and why am I so obsessed with spending an absolute fortune to make sure that my entire Lego city lives on MILS plates? And then not only that, I'm also going to show you how I make them as well. So MILS plate tutorial coming up. So to answer part one of that, what is a MILS plate? Let me show you, because all of these modulars in our Lego city sit on MILS plates. And this one's probably the easiest one to access, the Jazz Club at the top here. You can see rather than just being built directly onto the Lego base plates, it's got an extra layer of bricks and then another base plate on top before we build the modular on it. And why do we do that? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Reason number one is it makes them much easier to move around. I mean, you can see just how easy that is to lift because it's on a MILS plate, and I'm actually holding that in one hand, which you absolutely wouldn't be able to do if it was just on one flimsy base plate. Of course, the minifigs weren't attached to it, so they've just flown everywhere. But here we have an example of a flimsy base plate compared to a nice, secure MILS plate. And the other advantage we've got of the MILS plate is that you can see we've got these little access holes. That will allow me eventually, when I decide to put lights in all of my buildings, I can actually run the cables inside the plates and just pop them up inside the building where I want them, so I'm not running loads of loose cables everywhere. And you can also see on the side here that you have the little Technic bricks that you can then slot Technic pins into, which allows them to be connected to the plates around them, connected to the road plates, and it just makes the whole thing much easier to move the city around, rearrange stuff. It makes it modular. MILS stands for Modular Integrated Landscaping System, and it basically makes it so much simpler to constantly be moving the city around. It keeps everything more secure, and like I say, lots and lots of convenience added into it. The downside is it's really, really expensive. And now I need to find those minifigs that I dropped. And when I say they're expensive, I don't mean in terms of buying them as a thing, because you can't just go out and buy MILS plates, you have to make them. But they are much more expensive to make than just using the standard base plates. Firstly, certainly when it comes to the modulars, all the modulars come with a base plate. So if you just build them onto the wibbly wobbly base plates, there's no additional cost at all. But if you want to MILS plate them up, I have these 3 trays full of parts that I pull out of my cupboard to use in order to do it. We have the Technic bricks, we have the 2x3 bricks, we have a lot of 2x2 bricks, and then we have all of the plate that has to go on the top as well. And I reckon, based on my calculations, I bought all of the parts that I use my MILS plates as bulk. May have bought the majority of them to make train tracks with, and possibly made a slight error of judgment when I did that, but it does mean that I have a lot of parts lying around now. But I would estimate, rather than just the $7.99 that a typical Lego base plate would cost, or free if it's coming with a modular, doing MILS plates probably brings the cost up to about £20 to £25 per plate if you're using all new parts. Some of these parts, the 2x2 bricks, are actually used bricks, so they're a little bit cheaper if you decide to pick up used bricks off of Bricklink. But yeah, you're more than doubling the cost of your base plates, which is not ideal when you have a city that's going to have 50 plus base plates in it, all of which need to be MILS plates. I'm deliberately not going to do the sums on what's 50 times 20, because I feel like it will make me very sad that that's just on the plates for the city. But that's what they are. That's why we use them. Now let's show you how to make one. So in order to make one, we start off with our normal base plate, and the first thing that we need is a brick, a 2x2 brick in each corner, just to give us our little starting point. Obviously, you can decide to be fancy with the colours for these if you want. As far as I'm concerned, no one is ever going to see the colours of the bricks that we use on here, so that's why I was quite happy to just go out and buy a load of bulk used 2x2 bricks, knowing full well that no one's ever going to see them, so it doesn't matter what colour they are. We then go in with the 1x4 Technic bricks, and we put them alongside the corner bricks. We put these in every corner like this, and they're in exactly the same position on each one of those plates, because what that means is when we're starting to link them together, the holes are in exactly the same place on each of the modulars that we put in place on all of our road plates. So it's really easy just to pop a Technic pin into the middle, one of the 3 holes, and then everything clicks together nicely. You then need some 2x3 bricks just to make the numbers work for the rest of it. So next to the Technic bricks, you pop in a 2x3. You could leave a 1 stud gap and put a 2x2, but the very first tutorial I watched way back when I was getting started with this stuff said do a 2x3 brick here. So I bought some 2x3 bricks, so now I use them until I run out. I imagine a time will come where I just leave the gap and put the 2x2, and it'll be absolutely fine. You then, for the rest of the side, leave the 2 stud gap and then put a 2x2. So you do that along all of these edges, 2 stud gaps all the way around, just to fill in those sides. And again, if any of these side pieces are going to be visible anywhere, you might want to take a little bit more care about what colours you use, but I'm fairly confident the sides are going to be completely covered up on mine. And then once you've got the sides filled in, it's time to just fill in the middle with 2x2 bricks, with the idea being, because you're then going to cover it with these 4x4 plates all over, you want each corner of the plate to always have a brick under it to support it. And the way you make sure you set up that formation is between the edge bricks and the next row along, you leave a 1 stud gap and then pop them in place, maintaining the 2x2 everywhere else. So we want the 2 stud gaps between them this way. And then everywhere else, you have 2 studs in each direction. So it's just this edge bit here, you have the 1 stud gap, but then you cover the rest of it with the 2 stud gaps. And what that means is when you come to putting your plates on, you can see that we've got support underneath every one of the 4 corners of the plate, which just adds that little bit of extra stability. So I'm just going to fill in the rest of this with bricks, and this is where the bulk of the cost for this comes, because buying bricks is, I mean, these bricks are not cheap. Like I say, I got mine secondhand off of Brick Bin. I think they have a Bricklink store as well, and for, I think it was 200 bricks. I'll look up the price and put it on screen now. I'm not going to do it while I'm building, but on screen now it will show you how much I paid for my 2x2 bricks. And each one of these plates uses, I think, 60 something bricks. So that's just for the 2x2 brick. When you then also factor in the cost of all the plates that you put on top, plates are certainly not cheap. I've been lucky enough to find the majority of mine on the pick-a-brick wall, but it means you can't always be really choosy with colour. That's why I've got a lot of white plate on mine, because they had a lot of it on my local pick-a-brick. And as long as you're going to completely cover the base with whatever's going to go on it, it doesn't really matter what colour the base is. But there are certainly some modulars that have parts of the base plate showing through. One example of that would be, I think, Assembly Square has parts of the base plate showing through. So I had to make sure that I used dark grey tile on that one so that it matched the design of the original one, because I didn't want loads of white base plate showing through, because it would look a little bit weird on something that wasn't designed to have white base plate on in the first place. So bear that in mind. Ideally, you would always match up the colour that the original build had its base plate on, but it's not always possible and not always important. So you get that set up, and then we can get the 2x2s out of the way. And then from there, it is just a case of grabbing our 4x4 plates and covering the entire thing in them. And you can see that you end up with all these little channels. And this is what I was saying before about when you want to put lights in, you can then run the lights down the side, bring them up, and actually bring them up through the gap between these plates. If you never intend to put any kind of lights in your city, then the specifics of how you put these, of what size plates you use and the arrangements of the plates becomes far less important. The real goal for your MILS plate is that you have this layer of plate on top of a layer of brick that fully supports the plate, and all of that attaches to the original base plate. It doesn't have to be done exactly like this. This is certainly a very part intensive way to do it, but like I say, I want that flexibility to be able to pull up sections of this and fit lighting in later. So because of that, the more flexibility you want, the more expensive it's going to be. There are actually places online on Amazon where you can pick up 32 by 32 plate rather than base plate and just put an entire plate on top of this. I have experimented a little bit with doing that. It's not the best way. It certainly doesn't give you this flexibility to be able to pull up the individual plates and put lights in, and also it's quite hard to get it to properly mesh in with the brick underneath. It's third-party bricks rather than Lego. I don't know, that's a no-no for a lot of you. So it's not as good as doing it this way. This is certainly my preferred method, but if money is tight and you don't end up with a whole load of spare parts lying around that you can repurpose and use for MILS plates like I ended up with, then that's certainly a way to bring the cost down a little, albeit it's still much more expensive than just building straight onto standard Lego base plate. Nearly done. And you can see just how much plate we're using here, and you can really start to see how the cost starts to really ramp up for putting these in the city, especially when you want to put the entire city on MILS plates. But there is a completed one, and as you can see, when it's done, we don't have any of that wobble now. I've stood on these. You can stand on these. They will support my weight with no cracking, no bending, warping, anything like that. You can see the little tunnels that we have down the middle of them to run the lights through, and it's just a much more solid and secure base to build the city on. And then once we've built our modular, we make sure we've got the Technic pins in the right place, and then we can just slot it in, click it into the next one, and it holds the building in place in the city as well. And then when you want to move it, you can just slot it out, put it in somewhere else. Because they're all exactly the same size and connect together in exactly the same way, it just makes it so easy to move stuff around in the city. And having originally built the Sanctum Sanctorum just on the plate that it came with, and had all the fun of trying to move it from the bookcase behind my desk onto my desk and having it shake as it came, I knew from that moment on that any big build was always going to be on a MILS plate from then on, and it's just made everything so much easier. Hopefully you've found that video helpful. If you have, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. If you want to see this in action as part of the Lego City, there is a playlist on the channel showing the progress of the Lego City that we're building here. But subscribe and turn your notifications on for more of that kind of stuff. Let me know down in the comments if there's more tutorials you'd like to see. And thank you very much for watching.